Okay, can I have a motion to approve the, oh wait, do we do the board
Yeah,
secretary?
do the readings first, yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
If your permission, I'll go ahead.
Go ahead.
Good morning, board staff and members of the public. After my statement, the chairman will open this meeting and explain the rules for this electronic meeting. Please keep your microphone on mute while you are not speaking. The technical support team may proactively mute participants if the microphone is picking up background noise. Board members should check to make sure the microphone is not muted before speaking. You may text me at 540-336-3948 at any time during the meeting if you need technical support, and an IT tech will call your cell phone to assist. I now turn the meeting over to Committee Chairman Sultan.
Due to the local state of emergency for the COVID-19 pandemic, the Loudoun Water Board is meeting today by electronic means pursuant to Virginia Code 2-2-3708.2A3. Public notice and meeting access information was provided on the Loudoun Water website. A recording of the meeting will be available at this link, www.loudounwater.org, virtual-meeting-recordings. Board members wishing to speak are reminded to press unmute and identify themselves by name so that staff can accurately capture comments. All items will be recommended to the November 10th, 2021 board meeting. The board secretary will now take a roll call attendance of the committee members.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sultan?
Here.
Mr. Bonfils?
Here.
Mr. Moody?
Here.
And Ms. Sursakar? I do not see Ms. Sursakar on. And I would like to acknowledge that Chairman Koblis is also in the meeting. Thank you.
Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Yeah, this is Keith. A motion to approve.
I'll second. Roll call.
Yes, sir. Mr. Sultan?
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Sursakar? Thank you, sir.
Okay, let's move on to the first action item, which is the Route 50 600 zone connection.
Good morning. I'm here this morning to seek a recommendation of approval for a design task order for the Route 50 600 zone water main connection project. I want to give a little bit of background about our central water system. So you see here on the left, all of those colors are our central water system. We operate 3 different zones in that system. So we have the 510 zone, the 538 zone, and the 600 zone, which is shown in green there. So this project is within that zone. You can see on the right a little bit more dialed into the area that we're looking at. That this area is in the Route 50 corridor near the Lena community. So it's focusing really on that north side of 50. This is an area that is characterized by a lot of growth. And so that's really one of the primary drivers for this project. We've done a lot of work really that has helped to inform what we need to do here. So we did a master plan update that really looked at our entire central water system. And from that, we dialed into and did a 600 zone capacity analysis that was really focused on this area. The goal of it was really to identify what deficiencies do we have in the system that we need to make infrastructure improvements so that we can really meet our demands, both in the near term and in the long term. So this project was specifically identified as part of that work, and we're at a point where we're ready to move it forward. This slide here really just dials more into the project details. So again, what you see is you see Route 50 here down on the bottom. You see Heartland Drive coming in. This is the Lena area, just to give you some orientation. The master plan identified some alignments and places where we should really look into bolstering the system in order to improve reliability and redundancy. So what we've had happen is that, because there's a lot of development that's occurring, we've been able to work with the development community to shore up what you see in green here, which is some transmission main that's going to be constructed by the development community. What this project really focuses on is connecting those additional pieces and tying these large transmission mains into our system. So you can see what the project scope is here in blue. So there's an alignment. It's total about 3,400 linear feet of 16 to 24 inch water transmission mains coming down through these properties. There's a trenchless crossing under Route 50, which has a lot of technical complexity to it, as well as we're crossing a creek and impacting wetlands. Because we're running our pipeline across properties, we're going to have to negotiate easements with those properties. So it's a sizable project with some good complexity to it, but nothing I think that Loudon Water has not been able to tackle before. So with that, I wanted to talk about what services we've scoped in this task order. So with every task order, we've got project management support. Those are really the activities. I'll pause for a second. Mr. Sultan, I see that you have your hand raised.
Sir, I believe you're on mute.
You mentioned that there are extra complexities crossing Route 50. What sounds like it's just a routine crossing. What is the extra complexity?
So it's a trenchless crossing. So there are a number of different ways that, we can't open cut Route 50, and we're working within VDOT right of way and things like that. So there's permitting challenges. We want to understand what are the ground conditions, how hard is the rock. We have rock all over our service area, but understanding what that's like is really going to help us to understand what type of method may be most appropriate to get that pipe under Route 50.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. So talking about the scope of work here, we have project management built into this task order. That's something that is built into every task order and is really the meetings and the time that's required in order to facilitate the bulk, right, the core work that we're doing here, which is related to the design phase services. There's a lot of site investigations, and I think that points back to what we were just talking about, making sure that we gather sufficient information in the field in order to formulate the best design. So we've got topographic survey included in this. We've got utility locating. We need to delineate wetlands. We need to do a geotechnical evaluation and test pitting. We've got the design, and ultimately all of that information is going to go into developing bid-ready documents, including plans and technical specifications. We've also got cost estimating in there to help us understand what the costs are going to be, anticipated costs and risks to that cost of the project over as we refine the design. As I mentioned, there's the number of permits that are required as part of this project. We are impacting waters of the U.S. with a creek crossing, so we've got federal and state permits. We're working within VDOT areas, so we have permits that are required in coordination with them. We're going to be negotiating easement plats, and then we've got our local permitting requirements through the Loudoun County process for grading and permit. We've also got bid phase services support and answering questions once the project goes out to bid. So want to talk a little bit about our schedule that we're working to. We're here in the fourth quarter. With your approval, we would start the design and permitting process. And really what that would mean is that we would have a project ready to advertise in the beginning of 2023. So about a year design process to get all of this in order. Once we advertise the project, we would come back to the board in the second quarter of 2023 and seek approval of a construction contract with the goal that by the end of 2024, this infrastructure would be in the ground. So looking at that and understanding the growth and what's happening in the 600 zone, we feel like that's that timing is consistent and allows us to continue to meet our needs. I want to share a greater fee breakdown for the task order. The total estimated fee here is $189,000. I think you'll see here that the major elements in here are really developing of the design and drawings and specifications, as well as a large bulk in here for the site investigations, right? Geotechnical survey, utility locating plats, things of that nature. We did do an analysis on the level of effort proposed by the consultant and feel like for all of the work that's being done, that when we broke it out and compared it to previous efforts, that it made sense and was consistent. I want to just highlight, we always look at the total design fee and try to understand how that compares to what we anticipate the construction cost being, and that we feel like we're in a good place. We currently understand or kind of anticipate that this could be about a $2 million construction cost. I see that there is a question.
Mr. Moody?
Mr. Moody.
Yes, good morning, Sarah. You mentioned the design spec section is probably it's definitely the largest. Just curious, out of the 3 subcontractors, which one is doing that piece of work? I assume it's one, or is it multiple?
So the within that design cost, the primary work is actually being done by Dewberry, which is who we're awarding the task order to. There is some sub-consultant work in that, and I did want to highlight that, so I'm glad that you asked. We have Qualcore is identified as one of the sub-consultants on this job. They're a specialty firm that does cathodic protection design, so their effort is included in that. When we do large transmission mains and ductile iron pipe, naturally we, because of the nature of this is really, we're building the backbone of our system, we really focus and make sure that we have a professional design for the cathodic protection system. So that's included in that. What you see for the other sub-consultants, AccuMark is a sub-consultant who will be doing the utility locating work for us, and ECS will be doing the geotechnical work for us.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. And have we worked with Qualcore before, or is this a known vendor?
We worked actually, I believe, with a number. There's CorePro and others that are really specialty corrosion companies.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And our usual configuration is that they are a sub-consultant to our design engineer.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Skip ahead here to the project snapshot. So I think, again, the major takeaway is that this is a project that is within our CIP. It has been budgeted for. What we show in the 2021 CIP, so the currently approved CIP, is just over $3 million for design and construction. When the number and the budget was developed for the 2021 CIP, we had an understanding of the overall project scope of work. As I mentioned, this area is really rapidly growing, and so we've been able to coordinate through our land development team a developer building a little bit additional infrastructure. So in the 2022 CIP, what you'll see is that this budget number has been refined and reduced based on the project that was just described. So we expect, I believe it's about $2.2 million for design and construction of this project. And again, as we move through the project, we'll get a better sense of what we really think that construction cost is going to be. But I wanted to mention that. With that, if there aren't any other questions, there's a recommended motion before you.
I'll go ahead and make the recommended motion and have it placed on the consent agenda, if that pleases everyone.
Yeah, this is Keith. I'll second that.
Mr. Sultan, ready for the vote?
Yep,
All right, seeing no other questions, Mr. Sultan,
yes,
Mr. Bonfils,
Yes?
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
and Ms. Ursakar. She is absent. All right, that will be placed on consent. Thank you.
Thank you.
okay, let's move on to the Lansdowne reliability upgrades.
Good morning, everyone. So, I am here to seek approval of a design task order for the Lansdowne reliability upgrades. Oh, too far. All right, so a little bit of background on the pump station. It is located just east of Leesburg, and those of you who are familiar with the area, it's right by where Goose Creek and Riverside Parkway intersect. It was developer constructed back in 2003, so almost 20 years ago. And it has 2 constant speed submersible pumps. I'll get into that a little more on the next slides. It has a design capacity of 1.8 MJD, and that was, based off of projections when it was designed, in the very early 2000s. I'll get into a little more, but right now it's actually a little oversized. We haven't exactly realized the flows that were originally projected. And with these constant speed pumps, it's causing a little bit of an issue. Another thing to note is that there have been no major upgrades since it's been constructed. So we're pushing 20 years now with no upgrades at the pump station. And the last thing to note is that the site is very constrained. If you can see in the picture at the bottom right, I tried to do the best to pull a little 3D rendering, an image out. Right here, we're sort of built into a side hill, so you can see the site comes in. We have the retaining wall, the pump station building, very narrow driveway, and then just below the fence, it falls off again into a drainage. On the back end of the site, it falls into a drainage. And this is a couple hundred foot long driveway that comes into the site. So it's going to be tough to maneuver, tough to move around, pretty much no lay down area. And I'll get into that a little more as we go through some of the potential risks and issues as we design the upgrades to this pump station. So just giving you a little overview of the existing conditions. This is a sort of an aerial plan of the pump station layout. We have existing gravity coming in from this direction and from the bottom of your screen into an influent manhole. It comes into our wet well, 2 constant speed pumps, pump it out into our flow meter vault, and then it goes out to the force main, which is not shown here. And the force main travels along down the driveway. This is the bioxide odor control tank right here that feeds into the wet well. And we also have our control building. So just running through some of the existing issues we're having. One, I mentioned we have the 2 constant speed pumps. These are actually oversized for what some of the flows we're seeing. I think we were expecting a little bit more of build out or increased in the flow about 20 years ago. So right now, when these pumps pump the wastewater, we're pumping out of a 12-inch force main, and we're actually discharging into a 10-inch gravity sewer. So we're causing some surcharging at that manhole, and overall they're just operating inefficiently because they're oversized. Next issue is the control building. Currently, this building it houses our backup generator, a lot of the electrical equipment, a lot of the control equipment. Right now, it's an undivided building with no environmental controls, and all the equipment is pretty much original. So we're pushing 20 years. It's outdated, hard to get spare parts. We also have our odor control. Again, right now, it's not ideal feed system. It's not flow paced, so it's very inefficient use of the chemical, and we're spending a little more money than we need to be to provide odor control at this facility. Currently, the flow meter in the vault is a strap-on ultrasonic flow meter. Our staff is having a lot of issues with that and those types of meters in general. They have to recalibrate them frequently, and then we're also having, where we've seen in the past, where it goes long periods of time without recording any flow. And then right now we have a grinder in an influent manhole, and you can see it's right before a 90-degree bend. With this 90-degree bend, we see a lot of grease accumulation here, which is causing issues with flow going through the grinder itself, causing a lot of flow to actually end up bypassing the grinder and going into the wet well without any type of treatment. And then lastly, there is actually no bypass pumping or emergency storage at this pump station currently. Obviously, I mentioned that we have a really constrained site, so there's really nowhere to put emergency storage that's technically feasible. And the next best thing is having permanent bypass pumping capabilities, which are not there currently. So that's something we're looking to remedy. Going through the proposed improvements, sort of one by one again. First thing we're going to do is add new pumps and controls. We're actually going to reduce the capacity a little bit with some variables and add VFDs to the pumps so we can better meet the flows. Additionally, we're going to have new controls in the control building, which get to next. So we're looking to have new INC equipment, PLCs, have better controls for the pumps and stuff, better reporting capabilities. We're going to have electrical upgrades, switchgear, panels, lighting, a new automatic transfer switch. And we're also adding a dividing wall in between our equipment and the backup generator and environmental controls for this new electrical and INC equipment. Additionally, we're going to do some odor control modifications, mainly just have it flow pace so that, oh, Mr. Sultan, see your hand up.
Just a question, did you say you were going to replace the ultrasonic meter?
Yes, and I think that's actually my next bullet point.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So odor control modifications, we're going to have this be a flow paced so that better use of chemicals. Mr. Koplis.
Yeah, real quick, Stefan. Do we feel the control building itself is structurally okay since it's been there for 20 years? I guess we've done a little check on it, make sure there isn't mold and it's rotting, or actually I couldn't really tell what it was made out of.
Yeah, we've had that. We've had our consultants on site looking at it. Really no concerns with the structural integrity of the building, so no need to go into improvements there with this effort. We're also looking to do add a new flow meter. Instead of the strap-on ultrasonic, we're going to have a magnetic flow meter in this existing vault. We're going to relocate the grinder off of this 90 and right into the, prior to the flow coming into the wet well. That's a pretty typical configuration for us, and it seemed to work in the past quite well. Hopefully, and should alleviate a lot of these, grease buildup and bypassing flow concerns. We're also going to remove this monorail that's there to pull the pumps. We're going to instead have a jib crane that can pull pumps and the grinder, a little more efficient. And additionally, we're going to be installing a permanent bypass pump and connection. So this pump will be located on site and always connected. And if something the controls are going to be completely separate of the building and the original pumps. So if something happens on site, we'll have the pumps kick on automatically. And it'll give our staff some time to get to the site and deal with the issues. So as you saw, we're touching pretty much every aspect of this existing pump station. It's going to be a pretty big effort. So for overall scope of work, we're having a consultant design, our drawings and specs for bidding, have conduct a surge analysis for the pumps. We're going to have construction cost estimates at every design submission. And then I think a big one is developing a maintenance of plant operations plan. This is an existing pump station. It's going to have to stay in operation throughout construction, and with us touching pretty much every aspect of the pump station during construction. It's going to be important that we really plan out how this is going to take place and how it's going to be phased. So that there's no loss of service realized by our customers. And from a permitting aspect, it's all existing, and we're just doing upgrades, so it's not too much to it. We're gonna have a VDH, the CTC, and then just Loudoun County building permit. And then we're also gonna have our consultant provide some bid phase services if any questions come up during the bid phase. Looking at a high overview of the schedule, looking to start this late November. We're going to be about a year in design, and then advertise it for bid late next year. Hopefully give us award sometime late in Q1 of 2023, and then we're predicting about a 2-year construction schedule. Of that, we're looking at probably 9 or so months on temporary bypass pumping. So a pretty large effort for this project. And then just a snapshot. This is from the currently approved CIP, so we are updating this based off of the new information. But the main drivers are to increase the reliability and meet our own standards. Yes, Mr. Phillips.
Yeah, I was just curious, what is it that basically doubled our design budget? And then the second question is what is, oh, I see the construction now at 1.7 million. Now, is that going up also? Okay, can you explain?
I just don't think when this CIP sheet was getting put together, we just didn't really truly understand the full nature and the scope of the work. We didn't have anyone on site to really evaluate all the components of the site. We didn't realize we were touching pretty much every aspect of the pump station. We knew the pumps needed to be replaced and controls, but we didn't realize it was going to be essentially a full, A to Z type upgrade of the pump station. So, mainly just getting more information.
So do we know what the construction cost is going to be?
We got a class 5 estimate. So again, it's going to be a pretty big range. I guess right now we're looking at almost, over 4.5 million.
Okay. I was just trying to get the percentage of design to construction costs.
Yeah. So okay. Right now we're at 4.7, but again, it should be more looked at as a range.
And then my other question, I was kind of looking at it on the map. Looks like a big dam and a bunch of riprap that goes down right next to it. Are we in a protected area so that it won't flood out? I mean, I just wanted to make sure that something doesn't happen at that dam, or we're covered somehow, that it'll just flow into the river past our SPS.
Yeah, correct. So I mean, there's a pretty big drop off there too. So we're decent ways. There'd have to be some significant flooding for us to be really.
Okay, I couldn't tell obviously from the map. Okay, thanks.
So yeah, as I mentioned, we're going to be updating all these numbers have been updated with this current CIP planning effort. So, and then looking at a fee breakdown, not going through all these line by line, but the biggest portion, probably over 75%, is in the design. We're going to have plans, specs, and then workshops to figure out, the maintenance of plant operations plan, constructability type things, our SCADA and INC. So that's a very large portion. And then we also have, the typical PM, cost estimates, permitting, to come into a total fee of $311,000. And with that, we are looking for a 5% contingency to be awarded to HDR for a total budget of $326,000. I see someone has their hand up.
Mr. Boxhill?
Yes, this is Jim. You said something in there that gave me a little reason for pause. We're doing everything we can in this design, so the bypass, so we won't have any issues with a loss of service or impacting service to our customers. Yeah, that's paramount. And it sounds like you've given that a lot of thought. I'd just like a little more reassurance.
Yeah. So, currently as it stands, if something happens to this pump station, we're going to have the flows back up and the wet well, influent manhole, and then the gravity sewer that's coming into the pump station. That really only gives us, I think it was 50 minutes or so to really respond to and get our O&M staff out there, hook up the bypass pumps and get going. It's not too far west of, Western located in our central service area. So our staff feels okay about doing that, but ideally we have something set up on site that's pretty much automatically triggers and transfers over to backup pumping capabilities, which is what we're going to be designing as part of this effort. So, once this is constructed, if something happens to the pumps or the building or something, we're gonna have a completely separate pumping system there that automatically triggers and will take care of the flows.
Thank you.
Toblis?
Yeah, Stefan, are we replacing the generator?
No, we are not.
So 20-year-old generator is going to be okay?
Yeah, we looked at I think we looked at it, and our staff feels comfortable with how it is and its condition.
Okay.
Mr. Moody?
Yes, Stefan, just curious with something of this nature, and you speak about the criticality of the transition plan, and as Jim mentioned, has there been any plan in terms of communicating to the community, whether it's the board within the community or the general public, the associate? I'm just curious of what's going on there.
We do have some small amount of design dollars in there to help facilitate those discussions. At this point, we don't exactly know what they look like. I think we want to get a little better idea of exactly what this maintenance of plant operations plan looks like. In theory, there should not be any disruptions or any issues with service to the customers in there. All the flow should be taken care of, no problem. Probably still want to discuss just having construction vehicles going in and out of the site consistently and additional noise, but at this point we're not exactly sure what those conversations look like. I'm sure we'll have some of those and reach out to the community, but just don't know what that looks like at this point.
Yeah, I would think that it would be probably at least essential at a bare minimum to reach out to I'm assuming there's a Lansdowne board, community board, to make them aware of what's being planned. Just in the event that something goes awry, that they'll at least have been forewarned that there was an activity taking place that would have caused this. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah, and as we get closer to construction, we'll do more and more for outreach to those.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Stefan.
Absolutely.
Mr. Sultan?
On a follow-up to that question, where is the closest residence? How far away?
Not very far.
I mean, just approximate.
200 feet, 300 feet, a couple hundred feet.
Ooh, that's pretty close. Okay.
Yeah, they're back up right to it. Pretty much on the other side of that little drainage swale that was shown on that second slide. So.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, I'll make a motion to take the recommended motion and bring it to the consent. Do I hear a second?
Yeah, this is Keith. I'll second. Marty.
Okay, thank you. Jewel?
Yes, sir. Vote Mr. Sultan,
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
and Ms. Ursakar. All right, that item will be placed on consent. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the next item. JLMA West Sewer task order.
Good morning. Sorry, I got sun in my eyes here. I am here to talk to you about the first JLMA specific capital design. This one is for sewer, and this next one up is going to be for the water. All right. So, as you all know, Loudoun County approved their changes to the comprehensive plan in 2019, and basically that changed the presumed service provider from the town of Leesburg to Loudoun Water. And traditionally, it was the town of Leesburg's responsibility to take right of first refusal, basically, on providing water and sewer service to the area of the joint land management area between our central service area, which is Goose Creek, and then Sycolin Creek is what it was traditionally, to the town of Leesburg limits, which is this kind of darker line up here. So when that happened, the planning department kind of looked at master planning this area. And as we stepped through that, we broke down the area into specific regions. Basically, the town of Leesburg already serves Bolin Park, and there's a townhouse subdivision up here that they already serve. So we used Bolin Park as our kind of bisector, and we created the JLMA East on this northeast side of Bolin Park and the JLMA West on the western side of Bolin Park. In addition, with the comprehensive plan change in 2019, the county also gave us a new portion of transition policy area that's shown in the pink. And that's bordered by Heritage High School up here on the north, and then Evergreen Mills Road and the Greenway. So we also looked at this transition policy in the master planning that we did as well. Mr. Colas?
Hey, Kathleen, real quick question here. I think I read in the paper where Leesburg grabbed some more land for Leesburg, and you're going to show me that right now, right?
Yeah, so so the town of Leesburg is asking the county if they can annex a portion of Compass Creek, which is the Walmart, and I think it's an at-home store, and then there's another little parcel right here that they want to annex, and basically that would make this parcel just Microsoft that would be left over here. And we're still not 100% sure if the second two Microsoft buildings are going to come to us or if they're going to go to the town. Phases 1 and 2, so the first two buildings of Microsoft did go to the town of Leesburg.
So would that affect our design capacity?
It may. I mean, we've built in capacity for those phases 3 and 4 of Microsoft just in case they come to us.
Okay.
But, yeah. I think we're planning on bringing you a whole JLMA info item in January, so I can go into more detail. So this is our sewer master plan right now. I know there's a lot going on here, but basically what it points out to you is as part of the JLMA and the TPA, we've basically proposed some new pump stations. So Russell Branch, as you know, we were working on previously, but it will be integral to the final permanent JLMA build-out strategy. Also, Goose Creek Industrial Park, which you approved a few months ago, is under design right now, which will serve the JLMA East. And then we have the JLMA West sewer pump station, which is being designed by a developer currently. In addition, we're going to need a lot of sanitary sewer to make all these green lines happen. Like I said, we're working on some of them now. But this task order that I'm bringing before you is these two. So S3A West and S2 West. So I'm zooming in a little bit here. And this is the JLMA West pump station that's being built by the developer that I called out on the last slide. And basically this sewer is going to serve the transition policy area. So this is the village at Clear Springs, which is currently in for rezoning. We've dubbed it P1 in our planning. It's part of the transition policy area, so it's part of our central system now. We have to serve it. But the sewer line could also serve the Microsoft campus, like we said before, the rest of these smaller JLMA West parcels. And this portion from the pump station to the split in the creek is also going to be able to serve all of this area in our central system that we previously didn't have a pretty hard plan for. And then the water, similarly, mainly to serve P1, but also could serve Microsoft or the JLMA West over here. So specifically, there are quite a few complexities on this project. So the sewer obviously is going to be pretty big. We're anticipating 36-inch from the pump station to the creek split. Just in order to account for anything that could occur out here, obviously we're anticipating data center, we're anticipating a lot of residential in the transition policy area. And then from that split in the creek, most likely it'll be a 24-inch to this point where we could serve Microsoft campus, and then a 20-inch up to the P1 area. So in order to do that, we could be pretty deep depending on the way that we decide to permit our creek crossings here. So we're going to have 2 creek crossings, one of Sycolin Creek proper and then one of the tributary coming in. And if we go trenchless, we'll likely have to be at least 2 pipe casing diameters below the creek, which is at least 10 feet under the bottom of the creek, which is getting pretty deep for us, especially with a 3-foot diameter pipe. So that is going to be an issue because there's obviously a lot of rock out here, as we found with Trap Rock, and some of the crossings that have tried to occur out there in the past. We're a little bit hesitant to try and go that deep. So there's going to be a lot of permitting because this red kind of hatched area is all floodplain. So as you can imagine, there's floodplain permitting that we need to do. There's wetlands permitting that's going to be out there. There's just a lot of coordination that also needs to take place because we're also going to be crossing Sycolin Road, Shreve Mill Road, future Cross Trail Boulevard, and the Greenway. So we're going to need to work with the Trip 2, VDOT, DTCI, and oh yeah, there's an existing town of Leesburg sewer there as well. So basically we're going to be needing to coordinate with almost everyone. If we go for a joint permit application to open cut the creek, that would be Army Corps, DEQ, and VMRC, the Marine Resource Commission. So basically this project will touch almost everyone that we need to coordinate with. So in addition to significant rock, there's a lot of other complexities that are going along with this. So this task order also includes, our standard project management and design phase services. The design phase services includes a lot of survey, utility locating and test pits. Like I said, the wetland delineation, we're going to need that in order to permit. Geotechnical, due to the rock, we're actually going to go a little bit above and beyond on the geotechnical than we normally do and get I think it's called a seismic refraction survey, which will actually detail the different types of rock in the ground and give us kind of a cool profile of the different types to help us determine if we do want to go trenchless or open cut the creek in those locations, or possibly shift where we will do a crossing. Then obviously the design and cost estimating. Also included is all the permitting that I talked about and bid phase services. So just like with the other ones, we're anticipating, if you approve this scope, that we will start work in December, and likely this will take about a year in design and permitting, and then go out to bid and be about 1.5 years in construction due to the rock and the depth. So I got a breakdown. And like Sarah's project, we do have some sub-consultant work. So Arcane K is our chosen design consultant that we're working with, and they have chosen Terracon to do the geotechnical, Rice Associates to do the survey, and Wetland Studies and Solutions to do the wetland permitting. Any questions so far? Mr. Koblis?
Yeah, my finger was bouncing on it, and it's kind of like I read where somebody did 110 clicks in 10 seconds, and I'm like, that's impossible. Can you go back to the slide that shows all the spider webs?
This one or the JLMA one?
No, the JMA, the next one. Nope, next. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Okay.
So I assume that, and I think I read this, that we have the same designer for this, for the water as the sewer. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I assume that we are going to try to put the construction and have the same person do both the water and sewer at the same time, since we have these crossings. Excellent.
Sorry, I forgot to mention that.
Okay.
So,
and can you go one slide up?
Yep.
No, one more then. Yeah. So who is S1B and S4 West? Is that being designed now too? I mean, if we have a sewer going into we need someplace for it to go out, right?
That's right. So yeah. So S1A is the JLMA West sewer pump station, and we have a developer designing that for us right now. It's the Project Celtic Development, and Bowman / Burns & McDonald are working on the design of the pump station and the force main that will outfall into a gravity sewer that leads to the Trap Rock pump station, which is the North Lower Sycolin. North Lower Sycolin right now, basically the only flow it has is from Trap Rock, and some is from, there's a data center next door, but that's it. So we're anticipating that the North Lower Sycolin will need to be upgraded at some point, but I think 2025 is the point where the pumps will need to be upgraded. So in a couple years, likely, we'll come back with a redesign, or at least an upgrade, for that North Lower Sycolin pump station so that we can handle all the flow from this area.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Mr. Sultan?
My question was answered.
Okay. Is there another question? I can't see who it is.
Bonfils?
I think Mark asked all my questions.
Okay. The thing that I did mean to mention is that RK&K is going to be doing both the sewer and water design at the same time. So the survey, the geotechnical work, the bid phase services from this task order will be for both. But because there is reimbursement for a lot of the projects in the JLMA, we just wanted to, for accounting purposes, keep the water and the sewer separate. But we expect that we'll have two separate plans and two separate specs, but we'll bid them together so that the same contractor will be doing both. Mr. Bonfils?
Yeah, this is more a comment to the other folks on the board, but I look at all this work we're doing, and recently, the decision by the Board of Supervisors was that it was for us to do this work. I just worry that they might, how political winds change, they might change their mind. Is there any risk of that?
I think
it doesn't have to be answered. It's just a question.
Yeah, it is a question. I think if in order to change what they've done, they'd have to change the comprehensive plan again, which I'm not saying they can't do. They certainly can, but I think it would take a lot of work.
All right. I'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
All right. So like the last two projects, this is the CIP for this year, 2021. There was also an additional CIP sheet for waste for the TPA, which I didn't include here, but this was the JLMA waste sheet that I did last year. So I had about $3 million in there. But obviously this year we're going to update it because we have more information. So last year was a little bit throwing darts at the wall because we weren't 100% sure exactly what we needed, but now we do. So hopefully the 2022 CIP that you'll see next month will have a better number. And that's all I had on the sewer one. So the recommended motions before you for RK&K with a 5% contingency.
Are there any additional questions? Okay, I move.
Yeah, just one real quick one. Remind me again who RK&K is.
They're a civil BOA, and they were in our last BOA cycle, and we reauthorized them again for this BOA cycle.
Are they
They're out of
local?
Vienna.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
I just forgot. Thanks.
I do have one other question. With all these sub-consultants, what does Loudon Water have to do with the selection of them? Do they have to approve it or what?
So recently we started asking to see the proposals from the sub-consultants when we look at the task orders as well, so that we can, go through it and make sure that we're okay with everything that they're proposing. If we really dislike a sub-consultant for some reason, we can ask them to get a new proposal. But we've worked with WSSI extensively, and they're our preferred wetlands permitter. We've worked with Terracon in the past, and we may have worked with Rice previously. I'm not really sure, the surveyor.
But you guys do get actively involved with that.
Yes.
Okay, if there are no more questions, I move that the recommended motion be put to the board on consent. Do I get a second?
Yeah, this is Keith. I'll
Jim
second.
Bonneville, second.
Jewel?
Yes, sir. Mr. Sultan,
Yes?
Mr. Bonfield,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
and Ms. Sursakar. Thank you. That item will be placed on consent.
Okay,
All right.
let's move on to the next JLMA West Water Mains.
Yep. So this is the same area, but this is for the water task order. So this is the same slide as previous. But this slide, it shows the master planning that we've done for the water mains in the area. So I can tell you currently we have a developer working on the W1, 2, and 3 East, and a developer working on W1 West. So we're picking it up from where the development community is leaving on the west side. And this project will take W2 basically to that intersection of the two creeks, and then W7 will take it up through the Microsoft property and to serve P1. When we were working on this, we actually have spoken to Microsoft and gotten their verbal okay that they're willing to give us an easement. So we can be there across their property. So again, we are adding a lot of water mains in order to serve this JLMA East and TPA area. But in addition, we're also actually, this is going to help our central system, because currently we only have a 16-inch water main that goes out here to the landfill booster pump station. So we will actually do a backfeed on that water main, which will actually help our central system as well. So we're not only serving the JLMA and the TPA areas, but creating redundancy for our central system.
Good.
So I showed you this before. Same, we're basically going from Sickle Road with the water main and going right up the same corridor where the sewer is going to be. And again, though the water main isn't going to be as deep, and this is the wrong slide, but it will be a 24-inch water main all the way from Sickle Road up across the Greenway. So we are providing a couple of stubs for the Microsoft property just in case they do decide to connect. And we have worked already with DTCI. We've gotten their first set of plans for Cross Trail Boulevard. So they're putting in a bridge from the Greenway up to basically where this contour is. So we've worked with them on where their footings are going to be and ensuring that we're far enough away, because we most likely will be there. We'll be under construction before Cross Trail will. They anticipate that Cross Trail Boulevard won't be in construction until 2024. But again, the water main will also have some complexity because we will have to coordinate, with DTCI, with VDOT, and again, the permitting for the wetlands and the floodplain on the water as well. So the topographic survey on this one is with the other task order, so that isn't included. There's only a little bit of geotechnical evaluation with the water main, and that is for the corrosion control that Sarah talked about earlier. So because this is a 24-inch water main, again, it's a backbone transmission main in our system. So we want to make sure that it's going to stay and be useful for a long time. So we're going to do some corrosion control on that. And then bid ready plans and specs and cost estimating, permitting again, and bid phase services is actually not part of this task order. It's with the sewer one. So this has the same schedule as the sewer main. Like I said, we're planning on bidding this with the sewer package, and we're aiming for 2025 because that is when the village at Clear Springs is supposed to have its first connection ready to go. So hopefully we can stay on target with the schedule and meet their date. Fee breakdown again, like I said, the survey is all included in the sewer task order, the bid phase services included in the sewer task order, and then that little bit of geotechnical work is mainly for the corrosion control plan. So this was also in 2021's CIP. We put in about $3 million for design and construction on the water side. Are there any questions, Mr. Koblis?
Same question. Who's doing W1 West?
So W1 West is actually split between two developers. So that Project Celtic that's doing the sanitary sewer pump station in the west is doing the first half of it, and the second half is on the Cyclone Distribution Facilities site. So they're going to be taking it from their property line all the way down to where their limits of disturbance are and leaving a blow off for us to connect to.
And we're sure they're going to meet our schedules?
They're saying that they're going to go faster than us, so we'll see how that works out.
Thanks.
Yep.
I have just a technical question. What type of corrosion protection do you guys use nowadays?
So
Do you use anodes or impressed current or what?
usually it's a passive cathodic protection. So we put in anode bags and test stations. And usually when we do that, we do bag it. We do a polyethylene encasement as well. We only have one linear section of our system that has an impressed current on it, and that is the one on the raw water transmission main that crossed Route 7.
Okay, it's been a while. I was just curious what we're doing nowadays.
Yep. Same.
Are there any other questions? Okay, I make a motion that the recommended motion be put to the board under consent. Do I have any seconds?
This is Keith, I'll second.
Jewel?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Sultan,
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
and Ms. Sursakar. Thank you. That item will be placed on consent.
Yes,
Oh, thank you, Ms. Sursakar.
yeah. Thank you, Joe.
Appreciate that. Capital construction.
Next item, capital construction report. Brian?
Good morning. Let me, I just realized that I hadn't changed my background, so I want to, if I can figure out how to do that, I'll change it, but I don't think I'm going to be able to, so I'm going to leave it. It's an interesting background nonetheless. Good morning. So I'm here to, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning. I'm here to present the third quarter report, construction report. Okay, and in my report, I'll be presenting the three projects listed: the Goose Creek Waterline Crossing, the Howardsville Wastewater Collection System, and the Broad Run Expansion. And then I'll close with the quarterly numbers. First, the Goose Creek waterline crossing. This project enables us to deliver water from the Goose Creek Reservoir to Trap Rock. Garney is our contractor, and they've completed through the period $3.7 million out of the $4.5 million of the contract value. The status is the pipeline has been connected on the north end. The southern connection should be completed within the next week. I got some more updated information yesterday, so that is scheduled for next week. And the contractor is also performing miscellaneous work at the Trap Rock site. These are some photos from the Trap Rock site just below the bridge over Goose Creek, and the contractor is constructing a boat ramp into the reservoir. And that is, the boat ramp is going to be constructed with these precast segments that the contractor is lowering into place with a large excavator. Any questions? This is a photo of the raw water manhole that will enable us to measure the water that is being pumped from the reservoir to Trap Rock. The photo in the center, the light colored piping there is the location of our magnetic flow meter. We call that a mag meter, and that's what actually does the flow measuring. And the other two photos that flank it on the left and right are just the manhole itself and the progress photos. Okay, the Howardsville wastewater collection system, this is a county-funded project, so we are being reimbursed for this work. Sagres is our contractor, and they've completed $521,000 out of the $947,000 contract value, and that is work performed through September. The contractor has completed all of the sewer line, the low-pressure sewer line, which is shown in red in the little diagram on the right, and they are presently constructing the lateral connections to the homes, which include grinder pumps, and the pump and haul tank has been set. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Broad Run expansion. You've heard much of this before, but we're expanding the plant from 10 to 15 million gallons per day. Our contractor is Corman Kokosing out of Ohio. We're presently scheduled to be complete in August of 2024. We've completed the contract time elapses at 28%, and we're at 32% contract value to date. That's at 24.6 million. The change order total is up through September, and I will have Kendra discuss that with you in just a second. Overall, the contract's going well. Any questions? Okay, we had a pretty large change order during the period. This was for new membranes to install the latest model, and I see that Kendra has joined us. So go ahead, Kendra.
Hi. So what we wanted to talk about is this is, half of our change order value that we have to date, but this was a really great opportunity that got presented to the facility. So in the design, we pre-selected both the membrane manufacturer and the specific equipment we were going to get in 2018. And we needed to do that so that we knew exactly what we were designing around for this expansion. But when we did that pre-selection contract, we gave the ability for us to upgrade to any improvement that they made in that interim. So earlier this year, Suez came to us with what was a really good opportunity. So the actual change that we're getting here, what you see in this photo is, the metal frame is called the cassette, but the white strips you see, that is the actual membrane fiber. And Suez is making a change, and the membrane material is all still the same. And we've had really great operating experience and longevity out of this existing material. They're just changing the diameter of the tube. And so what this does is increases the square footage of membrane that we get. So by upgrading from our current tube diameter, which is 1.9 millimeters, to a 2.2 millimeter, which seems small, but it actually gives us a 16% increase in just the square footage of membrane we have, which results in a higher treatment capacity, but we have designed all the surrounding systems around the treatment capacity that we have right now. So this change order is just to upgrade the membranes. But that ability to expand to more capacity in the future is very beneficial as we talk about needing more capacity online at Broad Run. However, in the meantime, it will reduce operating costs by having a lower flux rate, right? So less flow per square foot of membrane, and will also extend the life of those membranes. So even if we made the decision down the line not to upgrade and get that capacity, there is still substantial benefit here for us in having the lower operating cost and a longer lifetime. So the overall risk with this change is very low. But the other driver to go ahead and do this is Suez plans to just discontinue the smaller diameter membrane because there's no reason for anybody to continue buying those now that they're offering a larger diameter and you can get more square footage. So while they could go ahead and make those for us, this would be like the last batch that they would make and we wouldn't be able to get them anymore. So there's just numerous operational benefits here. So we really consider this a betterment, and it goes within our contingency, but it's a pretty good chunk that will really benefit the plant in the long run.
Thank you, Kendra. Any questions about this change order 4? Okay, the contractor's working, this is just a photo or a rendering of the entire plant site, and the contractor's working at 8 separate areas at the site. All of this work is being performed concurrently, and it's being coordinated closely with the plant. So it's a big effort for all parties. I wanted to show just some progress photos of the equalization tank. The photo on the left is from March of this year, and then the photo on the right was taken in September. To show the progress of the tank. This is a pre-stressed concrete tank, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But both these photos are taken from the same vantage point, and it's a great photo showing the progress. Okay, so I mentioned that this is a pre-stressed tank. This is not typical reinforced concrete. This tank has a steel plate on the inside, and then it is wrapped with a pre-stressing tendon. There's some information about the tendon there itself and how it is wrapped around the tank, and then the tank is placed under tension. And then the concrete is not formed, it's actually spray applied to the outside of the tank. And this type of construction has been used quite a bit across, well, it's quite popular for this type of tank. And we have several tanks at the Broad Run that are constructed in this way. And both of our clear wells at Trap Rock are constructed using this construction technique. Any questions? I just wanted to show a rendering because our plan, our construction documents were developed using 3D CAD. So the photo on the photo on the right is just the prior to construction, and then the center picture that you see there is actually a rendering from the 3D plan, 3D model that we prepared. And then the photo on the right is actual construction photo. Ms. Ursakar?
Yes, hi. My hand up was not working. Before we go too much into this particular presentation, I just wanted to ask you, so talking about the equalization tank, you said it's pre-stressed tank and the
Right.
materials that are used, and the concrete on the outside was brushed, right?
It's a spray applied concrete.
Spray applied.
Yes.
I'm just curious to ask, like, what are some of the pros and cons of this? I mean, I do recall you said it's widely accepted, and
right.
for this, this particular type of tank, this kind of
right.
this kind of a coating.
Right.
Brian, we all know everything has its advantages and disadvantages. For the longevity of it, for the durability, I just wanted to understand, what are some disadvantages that, we may encounter, or some sort of issues that we may encounter in the future?
I'm not so much sure about the disadvantages, but this type of tank is commonly specified for economical reasons. It's much less expensive to build this type of tank versus a reinforced tank that is formed and and placed, which would take much longer to build, and the walls would be much thicker. So this tank is much less expensive to build than typical reinforced concrete, and that's probably one of the largest drivers. We would not be able to. I guess the only disadvantage I can think of is that you can't tie into this sort of a tank in the future. You can't drill into this tank if you wanted to put piping on the outside because it has a stressing tendon on it. So there are some limits on what you can do in the future if you needed to work on facilities that are constructed using a pre-stressing method. That would be the best thing I could tell you there. You can't, and it's in this case, this is a circular tank, so we wouldn't do that, but certainly pre-stressing can be used for walls as well, but there's some limits on what you can do in the future in terms of expanding or modifying those facilities.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the limitations, actually, that's a good word. Limitations was what I was actually looking for, and so you answered that, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. That's a very good question.
Hey, Brian.
Yes, sir.
Real quick, and helping Angeline also, most of the office buildings are now built this way, especially the high rise. And if they do want to connect, they can just X-ray the tank to figure out, where, if they actually need a connection on the outside to miss the tendon. So it is limiting for sure, and it does cost more, but hopefully, we don't need a bunch of things on the outside of the tank.
Right. Okay, so I've got any other questions? Okay. I've got a couple photos here also showing the 3D model and the rendering of the primary clarifiers facility. The photo on the left is from prior to construction, and then the center photo is a rendering of the final facility, and then the photo on the right is actual construction. When I presented this project last year, about a year and a half ago now, we talked a lot about some of the risk that this project presented and how we would plan to mitigate that risk. So I wanted to just provide 2 slides to you talking about risk. The first risk is obviously delays to the project. The second one is impact to operations. And then the third risk here that's identified is a risk related to PLC or SCADA failure, and how we're dealing with those. We are hearing about supply chain issues now, and that is certainly one risk that we're seeing. But the other 2 risks, we have been able to mitigate those with no issues, and we haven't realized any risk related to SCADA at all. Any questions? Okay, I've got this last slide with the risk, also talking about additional cost and compensation claims for the project, and also contractor's failure to comply with the contract. We've been mitigating these very well. Mr. Sultan?
Could you give some idea of what kind of supply chain issues you're encountering?
It's more, we're hearing about a lot of pipe delivery supply issues because some of the pipe comes from overseas. And we're hearing about pipe delivery issues, materials, some equipment being delivered, especially things that might come from overseas. That seems to be the biggest risk that we're seeing right now.
So mostly overseas, not within the United States.
Well, we're hearing about some of those as well, but it's largely in getting the raw materials to the manufacturer for processing. So we're hearing about some supply chain issues for materials coming out of Texas as well.
Are you encountering any labor shortages?
I haven't heard anything about that from the team. No.
Okay, just asking. Thanks.
Mr. Squire?
Brian, are we having any of these pipeline shortages or other material shortages from Canada, do you know, or Mexico, or is it just, or is it just?
I haven't heard about Canada or Mexico specifically, no.
Okay, okay, thank you.
So the key takeaways for the project, the communications are going really well between the parties. The processes we have in place for RFIs, shop drawings, and notices have been working well for us. Things have been coordinated with the plant really well. We continue to meet our permit there. Where we have had issues with the contractor's performance relative to quality, they've addressed that quickly. We are within the contract time so far. We have executed 5 change orders. We spoke about a large one just a few minutes ago, the membrane change order. So there has been an uptick there, but we're still in pretty good shape with our contingency. Any questions? So our existing construction projects, these have not, the ones that have not been closed out yet. And I just want to point out that Brambleton has been in operation for several months now. The only remaining activity for that is to close it out with the county. It's a county permitting issue. Cedar Crest, we have one more item remaining on the punch list, but that has been under our operation for months now as well. So those are both been substantially complete for months. We presently have almost $94 million in construction. Any questions? During the third quarter, we issued notices of final completion for the Horsepen Sewer Project, which we also call Brippy Phase 5 Horsepen. And we've also declared final completion on the O&M building renovation. So you see those numbers there. We have not completely closed out everything with the contractor relative to final payment. We're working on that. Any questions? Thank you.
I don't have questions, but I just want to say you guys handled construction in a very, very good manner. When I was with Fairfax, I don't think we did as good as you do.
Well, thank you.
Okay, capital spending monthly report. Any questions? Hearing none. Got the agenda on?
Yes, sir. Motion to adjourn.
So moved, Jim Bonfils.
Second.
All right. And the vote, Mr. Sultan,
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
and Ms. Ursakar.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned at 9:18 a.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for the very good presentation.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, very good.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.